Good afternoon. It's very hard to be the literally final one, so hopefully you'll stay with me just for a couple of minutes. So the idea here for me is not to be repeating a lot of things that have already been said, but on the contrary, is just to share with you a couple of the issues that we faced as being a Brazilian brand, and then becoming a regional brand, and then trying to become a global brand, all at the same time. Because this is the movement we are doing. We are still working very hard to be growing our brand in Brazil, but we are still establishing a regional brand in Latin America, as we are now in 6 markets already, and then going to the Northern Hemisphere, where we occupy 19 countries already with our business. So we are trying to do all these things at the same time and with different strategies. I think many people have seen already these magazines, these figures, these images. And so going back to what Andres Oppenheim said yesterday about education, unfortunately, it's not education that has brought us here. We have many, many other things, and hopefully one day this is going to be an important thing for us to do also. Education is crucial. I don't disagree with that, but we have something else, because we got here and it wasn't because of education. Latin America is rising to the world. This is an image from the Johnny Walker campaign that they are running right now in Brazil, and it's a pretty interesting campaign. We are no longer a blank space in the map. I remember when I was 19, I went to London to study English, and when we were introducing ourselves to the class, somebody heard that I was from Brazil, and they came to me and they said, "Oh, do you cross the streets with snakes?" And I was so shocked with that question. That was like 24 years ago, and at that time, people really thought Brazil was very much the forest and snakes crossing the street. So it hasn't passed that much time for people to realize that not only Brazil has not snakes on the streets at Avenida Paulista, but also Latin America has a lot to offer to the world. But we are different. We are different from the rest of the world. We are different amongst ourselves. It's very hard to say to a Latin that they are Latins only. Brazilians are Brazilians. Argentinians are strongly Argentinians. Chileans are Chileans. So it's very hard for us to treat Latin America as a whole. We've had a history that had a lot to do with what we are today. We had different dictatorships. We had a lot of inflation. I still remember when I used to go to the supermarket with my mom, and while she was taking some bread out of the shelf, somebody was remarking the prices at the same time. So people used to get their salaries and run to the supermarket to buy a lot of food so that their salaries would be having the same purchasing power. This has a lot of influence on how countries in Latin America created their businesses, ran their businesses. We had a lot of crises as well. Adversity shaped us, made us very flexible. In Brazil, we had 4 different currencies in 8 years. I was working at the bank already in '94 when we had the Plano Cruzado, the Plano Real, actually. And I remember I left the office at the bank on Friday. Everybody said, "Okay, have a nice weekend." On Monday, it was a different currency. We had 3 zeros less in the currency. And we had a URV table for people to peg our currency to the dollar. So how come a big bank can close the doors on a Friday and open up 2 days later with a totally different currency, zeros, everything was different. So we've done this 4 times in 8 years or 6 years. So that has a lot to do on how flexible we can be with our business. You can't go without changing after an experience like this. It made us very creative. People talk a lot about the feijoadas in Brazil. But feijoadas was not created by a chef who graduated at Cordon Bleu. It was created by slaves. And they created that with the instinct of surviving. They created the feijoada because their farmers used to kill the pig, get the best part of the meat, and they threw out the ears, the feet, and the grassy stuff because they didn't want to eat it. And then the slaves who were there and needed to survive, needed to be fed, to work, they created a feijoada. And nowadays, it's one of the most delicious dishes in the world. A lot of tourists go to Brazil and they want to try the feijoadas. Better if they have the caipirinhas as well. But I mean, this has been created by adversity. It was not somebody who had graduated with, from a good school who created something like this. The same with the flip-flops. It used to be very poor, very humble shoes for the maids. Our parents' maids used to clean up the houses wearing the flip-flops because they were durable, because they were cheap. And Havaianas had the insight of making those cheap shoes into something fancy, aspirational. That has a lot to do with the insights, with creativity. It has nothing to do with formal education. I don't mean to say that education is not important. It's one of the most important, and I'm sure we will be able to change to the next level only and if we can have education seriously taken in our countries. But I also have to acknowledge that many, many important things also helped us to be the way we are. Adversity made us optimistic as well. We are full of incredible facts. We have one of the largest oil reserves in the world. We are the world's second mobile markets in the world. We'll host the 2 biggest sporting events in the next years, and because we sponsor the Brazilian national team and because we will be the official bank of the World Cup, a lot of people ask me, are we going to be ready? Will the stadiums be ready? Will transportation be okay? How about the airports? And I'm like, I'm not FIFA, I'm not the Brazilian government, I'm just a hopeful sponsor who is really cheering for Brazil to win the World Cup, for the stadiums to be brilliant, for the airports to be okay. So I'm sure the World Cup and the Olympics will be very, very nice because we are a party country. And yesterday, somebody was talking about this. I think it was Pablo, right? He said a lot about the way we can, party, how Carnival is in Bahia, in Rio. So I'm sure the 2 events will be great. But I also have to say that I have the butterflies in my stomach too, because time is passing too fast. We have 30% of all the world's fresh water in Latin America. We have 2 of the 5 biggest TV broadcast networks in Latin America, Televisa and Rede Globo. So it's really time to show the world who we are. And we have to do this in this unique way that makes us very different. For those who live in Brazil, this sign is very familiar for you. This is how we say the made for you slogan of the bank. This is something we created in the 90s to tie our brand to technology, and it ended up becoming much more related to the relationship we are creating with our customers. Yesterday, Adriana mentioned a case that we had with a video that we got from YouTube, and we transported that to all possible screens, airplanes, videos, mobile, TV, cable, and so I have this here just to show a little bit of how we took a hard campaign to create because we needed to make people migrate from receiving statements in paper to the digital. And this is, again, having to change habits. People receive their statements. It's not necessarily that they use them. Some of them really throw them out in the basket without even opening the envelope. But again, people were used to do this. So we needed to do this campaign. It wasn't the first bank trying to make people change, so we needed something that would call people's attention. So we did this very cool campaign.
Sabe o extrato mensal da sua conta no Itaú? Com alguns cliques, ele passa a ser somente digital. Com isso, você economiza papel e colabora com um mundo mais sustentável. Use o papel para o que realmente vale a pena. Mude e conte com o Itaú para mudar com você.
This is very cute. The video had already had like 20 million views, but when we used it, it started all over again. So we had another 15 million views. And we made a specific piece for every different screen. So we had one for the ATMs, one for the home banking, one for airplanes, one for whatever screens. And we did no print because we needed to be consistent. Don't use paper, use it only for what it matters. So it was very nice. We were in the trendy topics for many, many weeks in the month. So when we first had this challenge of creating this campaign, we needed to start to build our awareness outside Latin America. We already have retail operations in Brazil, Chile, Uruguay, Paraguay, but we have no facing brand operations in the rest of the world, although we have 15 offices in 15 different countries. So our challenge here was, first of all, nobody knew how to say Itaú. They say Itau. We have this internal joke that is iPod, iPhone, iPad, and Itau. So people have no idea. They can't say Itaú. So I remember my colleague here from Bimbo. It's really hard. I mean, this is a Tupi-Guarani word as well. Itaú, it means pedra preta, black stone. So we had to have a very focused media plan. So we bought a sponsorship at the Bloomberg. So it was like hundreds of thousands of vignettes, 5-second vignettes saying, Itaú, the global Latin America bank. Itaú, the global Latin America bank. So we needed to teach people how to say Itaú and how to link Itaú to a bank in Brazil. Before we started the campaign, we did a survey, and near to our awareness of the brand was near to zero, very close to zero, except for Portugal. Maybe because of the language or because of the novelas, the soap operas, I don't know. In Portugal, our brand awareness is 44%, and the rest of the world, except for Latin America, is close to zero. So people don't know if Itaú is a brand for a bank or for a pair of shoes. So we needed to start from scratch. We chose some targeted audiences because we are not talking to everybody all of a sudden. We are talking to opinion leaders, to journalists, to investors, to very specific targets. So we started to do the campaign, and what we thought was interesting in this campaign was that although we are talking about ourselves as global Latin Americas, we used individuals, so famous people from different countries of Latin America, so that we could individualize the Latin American thing. Although we were seeing ourselves as Latin Americans, we were using Vicky Muniz, a Brazilian, Alice Braga, Camilo Villegas, Paloma Herrera, people from different countries of Latin America that could work as the portavoces of the brand. It's similar to the Got Milk strategy that the US government did many decades ago here in the US. We didn't do only media. We also did a lot of events. We did a lot of airport out of home and signage during big events. So we sponsored the Sony Ericsson, the tennis tournament here in Miami. When people get here, they see the whole airport with this campaign. So we are trying to build the brand little by little. It's not easy. We know how to do it in Brazil. We know now how to do it in Latin America. My colleagues from the region called and they said, oh, I want to use the baby campaign here in Latin America. And I said, not yet. We just launched our first regional campaign, and we had a lot of discussions about the accent. Could that be an Argentinian talking? Could that be a Chilean talking? So we are still learning about this process. We are doing fine here. We've been receiving a lot of inputs and phone calls from investors interested in knowing more about Itaú. And I think we are in the right way. The challenge for the future will be really to expand that to other regions. We are very much focusing in some regions, but we need to start going more global in the future. And also the next level of this campaign will be to start talking about Latin facts, which will tie the expertise of the bank to closer things, to better facts of Latin America that will help us to deliver our expertise and our message. I'll also show an example of one film that we did with the last Latin American that joined the campaign, which is Catena Zapata, the wine producer, and he's talking about the campaign.
Algo que para mí fue posiblemente un desafío permanente. Algo que para mí fue posiblemente un desafío permanente desde que comencé. Deseaba producir algo que internacionalmente fuera reconocido entre los mejores. Que ubicara a nuestros vinos, a esta región, llamémosla latinoamericana, en condiciones de competir en calidad con Europa. A ese proyecto le dediqué todas mis energías. Si yo tuviera que resumir, diría una tarea de estudio, de investigación permanente. Lo que me inspiró fue una creencia de mi padre. Mi padre creía que los lugares más fríos iban a producir mejor calidad. Y yo tomé esa creencia muy en serio y tomé el riesgo. Y algo así como un pedido al momento de morirse me dice: yo siempre he creído que el Malbec era la mejor variedad tinta que teníamos en Argentina. Dije, bueno, vamos a dedicarnos al Malbec, a ver qué podemos hacer. Mi experiencia como empresario y también como estudioso del tema es que todas las decisiones que históricamente han contribuido a una mejora implican experimentar, y cada vez que uno experimenta tiene la probabilidad del error o del éxito. En el año 94 hicimos nuestra primer cosecha de Malbec de zona fría y fue un éxito. Descubrí microclimas que producían un sabor y un aroma realmente diferente, peculiar, nuevo en el mundo, y eso nuevo gustó. Esos factores hacen de esta región latinoamericana algo único en el mundo. Soy Nicolás Catena Zapata. I am a global Latin American.
We did an event in Argentina, invited our customers, our clients, our customers, and he was there and he signed the wines for our customers, so they loved it. So just wrapping it up, yes, we do fit to compete in our unique way. We already have extraordinary achievements, and I think it's just the beginning. But we have to play the game in our flexible, creative, optimistic, and very consistent way. I mean, consistency is crucial here. We can't be changing, we can't lose focus. Use our brand assets. This is very, very important for us. We don't communicate banking the same way in all the places in the world. Even in Latin America, they are much more like focused in products. We are not in Brazil. We have a very different way to talk about banking, but we believe we'll be changing that a little bit. Stick to our brand values and to our purpose. This is it. Thank you.